Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic. We'll give folks a little bit of time to show up, but first of all, if you downloaded a free copy of A Throne of Bones or A Sea of Skulls, thanks very much. I hope you enjoy them. And I also hope that you'll consider either reviewing them on Amazon after you finish reading them, or if you're inclined and if you really like A Sea of Skulls, maybe consider registering and voting for it in the Dragon Awards, where it's up for Best Fantasy Novel. I think you have to do that before August 28th. So, and if you're not interested in epic fantasy, then there's no reason to. So, anyhow, it's not a quid pro quo. You know, I'm just happy to get them out. Well, they are printed up. I mean, this is A Throne of Bones in hardcover, and let me see. Here's two of the paper books. This is the paperback of A Throne of Bones, and this is also in the same series, Summa Helvetica. It's available in both paperback and hardcover, and so you know, if you like the free books, I'd strongly suggest that you pick up Summa Helvetica and Other Stories. So, yeah, we do have really good covers. Kirk really does a fantastic job. So, my favorite Bible verse is probably Ephesians 6:12. The shirt is a shirt I was given by a company that had offered me a job as a lead designer. I picked it up when I flew out there to interview with them. I didn't end up taking the job, but I like the company. Good company, good games. So anyhow, now that everybody's here, let's talk about the NFL. I am a lifelong NFL fan. The one time I actually had a knockdown, drag-out fight was with my best friend, was when I was 7 years old, and my best friend told me that I would never be the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, and so I punched him in the nose. His dad managed to break it up before it got too serious, but anyhow, you know, I remember, Fran Tarkenton. I remember the Drew Pearson game. You know, when my mother came back, my parents came back from that game. They were both at the game, and they didn't have the program that they usually brought me from the games. And I said, where's the program? And my mom looked kind of sheepish, and my dad started laughing. And he said, "Your mother doesn't have anything in her purse. She threw it along with the program at the referee." You may remember this was the time that poor referee failed to make an obvious pass interference call, and got hit by a beer bottle. and it wasn't just a beer bottle that was thrown. Apparently, a lot of people were throwing a lot of stuff. So, anyhow, you know, and I brought up my children properly. They were porphyrogenity, born to the purple. And I remember watching the 2009 NFL championship game, or NFC championship game, against the Saints, and Adrian Peterson fumbling twice inside the 5-yard line, and my son just, devastated, saying, what, what's going on? What's going on? And then after that interception and the New Orleans field goal in overtime, I turned to him and I said, now you know what it is to be a Vikings fan. I used to tell people this back when I used to have, before I was quite as well known, I used to have more aggressive trolls, and they would come at me, and they'd say all these things, and some of them would actually marvel at the fact that I simply didn't care. They understood that I just it didn't bother me in the slightest, whatever they said. And someone finally said, why, how are you so impervious to all the negativity and all the criticism and all the hate? I said, I'm a Vikings fan. There is nothing. There's nothing left inside. I mean, I've had every possible emotion completely burned out of me. I can still recite everything from the 41 to nothing championship game against the Giants, the 38-yarder, Gary Anderson against the Falcons, even that stupid Walsh 27-yarder he missed in the in the playoffs against Seattle. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it's part of who you are. It's part of who you are. But the problem is, the problem is that what the NFL was is beginning to go away. And some aspects of that are legitimate. It is truly and genuinely tragic to see some of the stuff that the older players are going through. I thought it was, it was one thing when you would hear about some of the older players that before you were really, necessarily around. But when you start seeing some of the stuff that is happening to players that you knew, that you saw, that's when you understand, okay, maybe some of this toning down the extreme head-to-head collisions and all that sort of thing, the concussions and so forth. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I don't think it's a bad thing at all to try to protect the players. I've told the story several times before, but I would never forget the time when a Packer caught the ball, turned around, got absolutely crushed by a Vikings cornerback who had about a 10-yard run at him. And that guy, he was so tough because he bounced right back up, starts walking back to the huddle, and then just does one of these. And I remember Brett Favre just gently turned him around and pushed him towards the sideline. Dude, he clearly did not know where he was or what he was doing. He probably didn't know his name. All he knew was, I got to get up and I got to get back to the huddle. And the thing is, we admire that courage. We love that courage. We love to see that courage. But at the same time, it's not, we have to understand and we have to recognize that that's not, I've told this story before, that's not good for the players. It's not right that they should be, treated in that way, given the fact that they have so little long-term financial future. And we're not talking. I mean, I don't worry. I'm not concerned about the boxers and stuff. They don't. They're not. I've fought full contact. Yes, it can be brutal. I've been knocked out knocked out completely. But the reality is, people have a tendency to look at these football players and they don't realize that the average career is 3 years. And if you've got a 3-year career, you're not getting paid tens of millions of dollars. And so, so maybe what my point is, there are genuine and serious ethical issues that do need to be addressed. This is not an SJW thing. This is not a convergence thing. This is a legitimate concern. And maybe the answer is to go backwards. Maybe the answer is to, reduce the size and the speed of the players. It can be done. Maybe there need to be weight classes. Maybe they need to take the helmets off. Maybe they just need to go back to the leather helmets. All of those things are legitimate. Teddy Roosevelt actually intervened and they modified the rules of the game in order to make sure that it wasn't going to, that people were not going to be damaged as severely. I personally think that, if you look at the size of the players after they retire, they just shrink. They just absolutely shrink. They lose 100 pounds, 150 pounds. They're still big, strong guys, but they're not these, freaks out there. And so, maybe we need to, just apply weight limits, and that would work. And so, anyhow, the point is that these are real issues. But at the same time, there's also a growing degree of convergence. You look at the way in which they tried to push Michael Sam on everyone. The way that, it was, suddenly this is this great new wonderful thing. This all started. Well, actually, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think fans want to see the monsters on the field. I don't think that, do you really think that the football players of the 90s were less entertaining because they, back then, the Fridge, who was huge compared to everybody else, was, he would be relatively small for a lineman these days. And so, I think that, I was there. I watched it. I think that 90s football was better. And so, I think that you need to take a look at this stuff. And of course, the other problem is that there's just not enough good quarterbacks. There's like 14 quarterbacks and 32 teams. And so, the leagues have, the rules have changed. Maybe we need to go back to some of the older rules that made the game more interesting. But let's get back to convergence. When we're talking about the convergence, what we're seeing is things like the concerns about having black quarterbacks. The constant pressure for more black coaches, and now now they've just hired. They're all very proud because they've just hired the first female coaches, and unsurprisingly, it turns out that one of the female coaches is now the first lesbian coach, and this is someone who has no experience at all in coaching football at any level. Never coached in high school, never coached in college. Now they're pushing women, female referees. Now they're pushing all this stuff. And what do we know about convergence? What we know about convergence is that it eliminates the primary purpose of the organization. And so all these things that we are seeing, they're not causes of the decline of popularity of the NFL. They are signs of the decline and the indication that the decline is going to continue. Now I don't know how much of this is because of the the fact that there are more and more Jewish owners, or is it because it's being put? I don't know. Robert Kraft doesn't seem to be pushing this stuff. Jerry Jones doesn't seem to be pushing this stuff. I don't know who is pushing this stuff. But somebody is. Certainly we know that the media is. The media is constantly pushing, the political side. ESPN is absolutely pushing this. Yeah, and it's not going to be long before they start putting female kickers in there, regardless of what they can do. Now they're getting involved in politics. I personally think that it's primarily coming out of it's a combination of the media teamed up with the NFL head office. So I don't know. I just don't know. But and the only reason that I mentioned the Jewish owners is because, of course, you've got more owners like Siggy Wilf, who's the owner of the Vikings. Now, I don't think he's a bad owner. They managed to keep the team in Minnesota. They've put together a decent team. The team's got pretty good relations with the populace. But the one thing that bothered me about Siggy Wilf is he has nothing to do with Minnesota. And that also bothered me about Red, the previous owner, Red. I can't remember his last name, but he was from San Antonio. And so, to me, it is troubling that the ownership and the team, the ownership, Red McCombs, that was it. To me, it was troubling that the ownerships have less and less connection to the communities. The Rooney family in Pittsburgh, the family in New York that controls the Giants, even Jerry Jones, the Mara family, they may be fairly lefty. Obviously the Rooneys are very lefty, but they have a genuine connection to their communities. And so, whereas you just don't see that as much, what does it have? I don't know that it necessarily does. I only know that, like Arthur Blank, who owns the Cardinals, Robert Kraft, who owns the Patriots, and Ziggy Wilf, who owns the Vikings. I mean, I don't. There may be more. I don't know. But the point is that statistically, that is improbable. And so I don't know if the NFL owners are doing the same thing that the media does, and is basically converging the league through deciding who they let in and who they don't. Okay, and so so that's what it has to do with it. You know, I just don't know. I know that the convergence in the media, especially in the conservative media, definitely is a Jewish thing. You know, if the NBA has also, to a certain extent, been converged that way, but it always was. You know, dating back to Red Auerbach. So, you know, fine, legitimate. But you know, again, I'm not saying that's where the convergence is coming from. I don't know. But what we do know is that the convergence exists and is ongoing. And so it cannot be stopped, it cannot be solved until it is understood. And so, anyhow, you know, and the thing is, there's nothing for us to do about it except possibly to push the Green Bay Packer model. Now, there is some ability to pressure because the NFL has their special arrangement with the U.S. Congress, and they have rules currently that prevent other communities from applying the Green Bay model. But if it's possible to put pressure on them to go to the Green Bay model, then a lot of these problems might be solved. In the case of Green Bay, the community owns the team. So the team is not going to move. And the people have considerably more control over what is happening there. You know, and you don't have these, you know, outsiders, you know, threatening to move the teams, etc., etc. And so, now obviously, the NFL owners are not keen on that sort of thing because they want to be able to cash out. But, you know, if each community were to cash them out at a premium, then that could work. So, anyhow, especially since the currently, you know, why should the team pay more for a stadium than they could for the team itself? That may not actually be true, obviously, but I don't know what the teams actually go for versus the cost of the stadiums. But the point is, if the team is going, if the community is going to put that money in, they might as well buy the team. You know, the only thing preventing that is the league bylaws. So, anyhow, I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. I don't even know that. You know, I don't know that if it's Ziggy Wilf that is pushing that kind of stuff or not. I'm not paying that close of attention. In fact, I'm paying less attention to the NFL than I ever have before. I'll probably still get the Game Pass so that I can watch Vikings games. But this is the first year that I haven't played fantasy football in probably 15 years. You know, at one point, At one point, I was actually in 2 fantasy football leagues. Now, I didn't bother getting the pro football. I didn't bother getting the Football Outsiders encyclopedia. I didn't bother. I just don't really care. It's not that the football is just not that fun anymore. We know that and part of the problem is the way that the rules have changed is such that quarterbacks have become so important. It used to be that you could win a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. I don't think that's possible anymore. It used to be that it used to be possible to, ride a running back, to a Super Bowl. But that's not possible anymore. And so, anyhow, don't even get me started on instant replay and stuff. I mean, the rules are too skewed to a passing offense. The rules changes that were key to the changing the importance of the quarterback. A couple things. Basically, you weren't allowed to, you're not allowed to hit the quarterback anymore. And they changed a lot of the coverage rules. And so, and I don't think it's a bad thing to protect the quarterbacks from injury. But I don't think it's a bad thing to to defend, try to protect defenseless receivers. But there's no reason why they can't have considerably more contact than they did before. And so, no, I mean, you're allowed to sack a quarterback, but there's lots of ticky tack. I mean, if your hand brushes his helmet, they throw a flag. And so, again, I don't have the solution. I'm not suggesting a solution. I'm agreeing with the guy who says a to Z review of all the rules and all the all the changes has to be closely reviewed, because the game simply isn't that entertaining anymore. And the idea that more points equals higher ratings and that sort of thing, that's just stupid. That's failing to understand. The problem, I think, is that there's a lot of people in the NFL office who have no idea why people follow the sport or what they enjoy about it. And so, this shallow understanding is significantly damaging the sport, as is the convergence, the political convergence and the growing influence of SJWs in the sports media and in the league offices, and as far as I know, potentially in the team offices as well. There's no reason for them to be talking. I hate listening. I used to love, the old announcers, Madden and Summerall, talking about the actual sport. But now the commentators are trying to. It's like watching. It's like when the Bob Costas Olympics took over, and suddenly everything became a sob story about the background of the player. And it's just horrible. It's not worth. It's all false drama. And he overcame so much to blah, frickin' blah, frickin' blah. You know? And what they don't realize, you know, if they're trying to appeal to the wife on the couch, they're failing to understand that we are turning it off. We're not interested. Exactly. Football is not a human interest story. Period. And so, anyhow, you know, maybe there will be a, you know, maybe there will be a new league starting here in another 5 or 6 years. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that I am a lifelong NFL fan. And this is the first year that I'm not playing fantasy football. You know, this is the first year that I had to, you know, I realized that, you know, I just don't care that much anymore. And so, you know, it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It simply is. And so, you know, when I read about the you know, the excited reporting about a female lesbian coach, I mean, I so don't care. So, anyhow, that's all I have. Have a good evening. We'll see you soon. And if you haven't picked up A Throne of Bones and A Sea of Skulls, they're both free. So go for it. Have a good one.